There is no doubt that the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous are challenging to understand and use accurately in English. And there's a good reason for that. In some cases, you could use either perfect form and there would be no difference in the meaning. As in the common example sentences of, I've lived in Washington, D.C. for 3 years, and I've been living in Washington, D.C. for 3 years. And yet, there are times in which there is a distinct difference in meaning or strict guidelines you should follow when you're deciding whether to use the present perfect simple or the present perfect continuous. Despite years of using English, you might still feel confused about which form to use, and as a result, you feel frustrated or limited in your ability to express yourself in English. So, is there a way forward? Is there a way to overcome this confusion? There absolutely is. If you don't already know, I'm Anne-Marie, the founder of Speak Confident English and the creator of Fluency School and the Confident Women community. Everything I do is designed to help you get the confidence you want for your life and work in English. That certainly includes clearly understanding complicated grammar structures. By the end of this lesson with me today, you will know exactly which form to use and when, so that you can confidently make decisions in your English conversations. More precisely, you're going to learn how the perfect simple and the perfect continuous are similar. You'll learn when these two forms have the same meaning. And you'll learn when there are differences in meaning and how you can make the right choice on whether you should be using the perfect simple or the perfect continuous in your English conversations. Now, before we go all in this high-level grammar lesson, I have 2 recommendations for you. Number 1, I recommend that you get some paper, your English notebook, and a pen or pencil, because as you go through this video, I want you to take notes. And as I share common scenarios, I want you to immediately create your own example sentences that are true for your life, because that will make remembering everything you learn here much easier. The second thing I recommend is that you stick with me to the end, because I'm going to share a little quiz at the end to test your know-how. Let's start with what the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous have in common. Both forms connect the past to the present. We're going to look at several examples where that will be very clear. The second thing they have in common is they both often use the words since and for. To get comfortable with these similarities and to review the structure of these forms, let's look at these sentences. I've taught English for more than 20 years. I've been teaching English for more than 20 years. I've taught English since 1996. I've been teaching since 1996. Now, at this time, I can imagine that you might be looking at those 4 sentences and thinking, Anne-Marie, how exactly are these sentences different? When would you use I have taught versus I have been teaching? And that leads me to the second key point I want to discuss. When are the perfect simple and the perfect continuous essentially the same in meaning? When we use verbs that allow us to share biographical information, such as the verbs to study, to live, to work, we can use the present perfect simple or the present perfect continuous, and the meaning is essentially the same. We don't need to worry about which one to use. So if, for example, you're in a job interview and the interviewer is asking about your job experience, including how long you've been with your most recent employer, you don't have to stress or worry about which one is correct. You could use, I've worked with my current employer since 2019, or I've been working with my current employer since 2019. Now, some of you, I think, might be feeling frustrated and you want to know why we have both forms if both are correct and can be used with the same meaning. And that's a fair question. It is frustrating. So let me talk a little bit about why both could be interpreted in the same way. Let's start with the sentence, I have lived in Washington, D.C. for 3 years. Again, it clearly started in the past, and the structure of the present perfect simple form connects to today, the present moment. This could be interpreted as having no statements about the future. It's simply connecting the past to today. It could also be interpreted as something that is permanent and not changing. And so in that sense, we can assume that I'm going to continue living in Washington, D.C. So if I have lived here for 3 years, there's this feeling that it's not really going to change, and I'm not really making any comment about the future. If I said, I've been living in Washington, D.C. for 3 years, again, there are different interpretations we could use. In one sense, it has the feeling that it's true today and it's going to continue into the future. It could also be interpreted or used in a way that implies that it's temporary. I could say, I've been living in DC for 3 years, but next month I'm moving to California. That's possible as well. But don't forget, that first interpretation, it could imply that it's going to continue in the future. So when we unpack those two forms, we realize that at the end, both of them could be interpreted in the same way. As a result, we don't have to stress about which one is correct. We can use either one. Now that we have the similarities and we know in which ways both the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous can be used with the same meaning, it's time to get into the distinctions. What are the differences between the two? And how do you know when you should use the perfect simple versus the perfect continuous? There are some differences in meaning, and there are times in which we want to choose one over the other. Let's start with when you should select the present perfect simple. If you think back to all your English grammar studies, you might remember something called stative verbs. Stative verbs describe unchanging situations. They relate to your mental state, as opposed to active verbs which show action. Stative verbs are often related to your thoughts and opinions, feelings and emotions, senses and perceptions, and possession or measurement. For example, with the verb know, I can say, I've known him for 5 years, but I cannot say, I've been knowing him for 5 years. Stative verbs use the present perfect simple. Here's another example. I've heard that's a great book. We cannot say, I've been hearing that's a great book. Again, the verb hear is a stative verb, so we use the present perfect simple. Now, if you observed that list of stative verbs carefully, you may have noticed that I had the verb love. And you may be wondering, Anne-Marie, I'm pretty sure I've heard someone say, I've been loving The Queen's Gambit on Netflix recently. How is that correct? That's a fantastic question. When the verb love is used to state a preference or a feeling of love that we have for someone, it's stative. And in that sense, we can't use it with the ing form. However, sometimes love is used as a way to say it is something that you are enjoying at this time, which is an action. And so if someone says, I've been loving The Queen's Gambit on Netflix recently, they're not talking about these overwhelming feelings of love the way you might love a family member. They're highlighting the fact that it's something they've been enjoying recently. And now let's look at a second situation in which you want to use the present perfect simple. When you're talking about quantity, how much, or how many. For example, I've read 3 books this month. I'm talking about how many books I've read. Or I've already had a lot of coffee this morning. I've already had a lot of coffee. We're talking about how much. In both cases, I cannot switch to the present perfect continuous. I cannot say I have been reading 3 books this month. It doesn't work. When we include quantity, how much or how many, it's best to choose the present perfect simple. From there, let's look at specific situations in which you want to select the present perfect continuous form. When a situation is new or temporary, the present perfect continuous is a better choice. Let's go through a couple of scenarios to highlight that. In scenario number 1, let's say that a friend of yours is looking to join a gym, and she knows that you've been a long-time member of a gym near your home. So she's curious if you recommend it. And when you respond to her, you might say, "The gym near my home closed, unfortunately. So I've been going to the gym near work." We're using the present perfect continuous because this is a relatively new situation. It's permanent because the gym near your home has closed, and it's new. Now, let's change this scenario just a little bit. Let's imagine that once again your friend is asking about your recommendation, and the gym near your home is temporarily closed for renovations. Although the closure is temporary, you would still respond with, "The gym near my home is closed for renovations, so I've been going to the gym near work." In both situations, I'm using "I have been going" because the situation is either new or temporary. And now let's look at a second situation in which it's better to choose the present perfect continuous. When we are emphasizing the length of time. In this third scenario, let's say that you and a coworker are waiting on a friend at lunch. And your friend hasn't arrived. She hasn't texted to say why she's late. It's been a long time. You're starting to feel a bit frustrated, maybe even annoyed. So you might exclaim, "We've been waiting for over an hour. Where on earth is she?" We've been waiting for over an hour. By choosing the perfect continuous form, it emphasizes that length of time and it lends to that sense of exasperation or annoyance. We could definitely say, "We have waited for over an hour. Where is she?" But it loses some of that power. It loses that emphasis. So once again, when you want to emphasize the length of time for something, we would use the present perfect continuous. Okay, we have just a few more key points to help you clearly understand exactly when to use the present perfect simple versus the continuous form. I know there's a lot of information here, so you can take it as slowly as you need to. You can come back and rewatch this video anytime. I also encourage you to write down examples, even if you think of them later today or tomorrow or next week. Doing that is going to help you remember what you've learned here and make it easier to make these choices in the moment that you're speaking English. If you're feeling ready to go, let's move on to our final section, where we're going to look at 3 different situations in which you have to make a choice between the perfect simple or the perfect continuous. And the choice you make will change the meaning slightly. The first situation we need to assess is whether it's a singular or repetitive action. Let me give you a scenario to help clarify. If an action is singular, it has happened one time, we use the present perfect simple. For example, let's say that you and your team are trying to make an important decision on a project, but you cannot make that decision until you talk to the client. At the next team meeting, you might say, "I've tried to call them and they haven't answered." However, let's change the scenario just a little bit and imagine that You have called time and time again. Maybe you've attempted to call the client 4 or 5 times. In the team meeting, you might say, I've been calling them for days, but they haven't answered the phone. I've been calling them for days. Because you've done it multiple times, because it's repeated, we use the present perfect continuous. In a similar way, hobbies or habits that you have can be considered ongoing or repeated. For example, let's say that you're chatting with a friend about a new habit you've implemented since the start of the new year. You could say, since January, I've been carving out 20 minutes of time every day to do yoga. This is a repetitive, ongoing action. It's also something that's new, which we talked about previously as being a situation in which we use the present perfect continuous. The second thing that we want to think about when we're deciding between the present perfect simple and the present perfect continuous is whether an action is finished or unfinished. Once again, let's look at several examples because that always makes it easier. If I say, I've read that book already, it was fantastic. In that sentence, I'm using the present perfect simple, and it indicates that something is finished or completed. I have read that book, I'm done, let's talk all about it. Example number 2, I've been reading that book you told me about. It's fantastic. By using the perfect continuous, I'm indicating that it is unfinished or that it's ongoing. I definitely don't want you to tell me the end. I'm not finished with the book yet. Example number 3, I've been reading this book all day. I can't put it down. I'm using the present perfect continuous once again because the day isn't finished. I might continue reading. It's ongoing or continuous. In the examples I shared, you may have noticed the adverb already, which means before now, indicating that something is complete. As a result, we only use the adverb already in the present simple form. I've read that book already. She has taken her medication already. Similarly, the adverb yet also lends a sense of completeness, which is why you'll hear, have you read that book yet? Or, no, I haven't read that book yet. Again, we use that adverb with the present perfect simple. And now it's time for our last consideration, the last situation in which we need to determine whether to use the perfect simple or perfect continuous. And it relates to the focus we have on the results, the outcome, or the achievement of an action. One question you can ask is, does the result come after another action is complete? For example, they've done all their homework, so they're going to the park. They've done all their homework. This implies that that action is complete, it's finished, and as a result, the kids can go to the park. Now, let's contrast that to how we might use the perfect continuous. I could say, they've been studying all day, and they're eager to go to the park. In this example, by using the perfect continuous, it doesn't matter if it's finished or unfinished. They might have more studying to do. The focus has shifted to the process itself, the fact that they've been studying all day, and the outcomes that we can observe, the things that we can see, feel, and hear. All right, now you have everything you need to understand how the perfect simple and continuous are similar, when you can use both perfect forms and the meaning is the same, and when you need to make a choice between the two, and there might be a difference in meaning. Before we finish today, let's do a quick test. I have 4 sentences for you, and I want you to think about whether the sentence is correct or incorrect. If it's incorrect, I want you to think about why and how you would fix it. Here's number 1. I've been knowing our neighbors for 3 years. What do you think? Is it correct or incorrect? I've been knowing our neighbors for 3 years. If you said it's incorrect, you're absolutely right. Why? We're using the verb know, which is a stative verb. And that means we use the perfect simple. Number 2, I've been drinking more water lately, so I feel a lot better. What do you think? It's absolutely correct. By using the perfect continuous, we're implying that it's something new or a habit. Number 3, the students have been finishing their exams already. What do you think? Number 3 is incorrect. We have that adverb already, which once again means before now, and it has a sense of completeness or that something is finished. So we should use the perfect simple. It should be the students have finished their exams already. And now the last one for today, number 4. I've read the book all day. It's a page turner. I've read the book all day. It's a page turner. What do you think? Is the day finished? It's not. It's unfinished. So it's better to use the perfect continuous form. I have been reading the book all day. It's a page turner. Without a doubt, I hope that you found today's lesson useful to you. If you did, I'd love to know, and you can tell me in one very simple way. Give this lesson a thumbs up here on YouTube and subscribe to the Speak Confident English channel so you never miss one of my Confident English lessons. Thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you for sticking with me as we walk through this process to better understand the perfect simple and the perfect continuous in English. I look forward to seeing you next time.